All right, and now we welcome on U.S. 800 meter indoor champion Allie Wilson. How's that sound? Like part of your name now, I guess, is U.S. champion. First times. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't hate that title. Yeah, I feel really, really excited and excited to slap that onto my resume. I feel like they're still announcing me as like six-time MAC champion. I'm like, come on, give me something more than that. So this one sounds better.
Okay, so on Instagram you posted no words, just happy. Have you found some more words to describe, I guess, how you've been feeling since Saturday?
I I think I have, yeah. I feel like it might come out in like whatever questions you're gonna ask me, so I don't want to get into it too much. But yeah, I definitely have had time to process like what actually happened and yeah, kind of the volume of like how much it meant to me, given all the circumstances and especially after last year, I had a pretty tough year. So I feel like, yeah, there's I'm feeling very grateful and proud of that race. And I think there's more words today for how I feel about it.
All right, so I guess a good starting point might be if we go back, what, 6 months or so, last year you finished your outdoor season in August. At that point, did you sort of anticipate that there would be some of these changes coming down the road?
Yeah, so we actually knew very early on last year that things were probably going to be changing around. For a while, it just kind of felt like it was more of like a concept or like this may happen down the road. And very quickly, it became like where like this is really happening and we're going to need to make really hard decisions. So I think for our entire team last year, that was pretty tough because it was just hard to wrap our heads around like continuing to focus on what we were trying to do and like our tasks at hand while still knowing like all of that was going on at the same time. And, you try to put stuff on the back burner, but sometimes it's just, it's hard not to think about something when you know it's going to affect your life so much. So, yeah, I don't know exactly when like we really knew, but oh, it feels like the whole year we were like had it in our minds like something might be happening. So it was
Yeah.
tough.
So for context, I guess for the people who may not be as familiar or followed as closely, I think it was what at some point last summer,
Mhm.
Atlanta Track Club and the Begleys announced that they would be parting ways, and so it was kind of like this cloud hanging over things for a bit. It was like who was gonna stay on the team, what changes would be made. Eventually, Tommy Nohilly gets hired as the head coach, brings a couple of people from, Empire Elite he had been working with and, stays with a good chunk of the team. Coach Begley, moves to Indianapolis and you decide to follow, both your coaches. What went into that decision?
Ooh. So a lot went into that decision. The Begleys are who recruited me out of college. They were like there by my side from like the second I like kind of started like improving. They were like always congratulating me and wishing me good luck. And I just felt like they were such a big part of my journey from even before they were my coaches. Um, and so yeah, I was with them for 4 years and it just felt like in my heart, even once I knew like it was really stressful once I found out like that they were definitely going to be leaving. But I was like, it's such an important year. It's such a crucial time. Like there was really just no circumstance where I didn't see myself staying with Andrew. And I just feel like he is so like particular about his training. And I mean, every coach is, but like he's so like methodical about it to the point where it's like I felt like everything we've done for the past 4 years is like kind of like the long game. And I was like, I feel like I'm finally like about to like reap those benefits from like all this work I put in. And it just felt way too risky to even like consider any other like switching coaches at this time. So, and like just the fact that they've been so loyal to me and by my side, like through like good times or bad, like they've never yeah, not been there to support me. It just felt like wrong to not continue with them. So it was really hard. And for a while, they were saying, like, trying to decide where they were going to be moving. And there was a lot of things that were kind of up in the air. So we were just like ping ponging around, like, oh, we're moving here. We're moving to New York. We're moving here. And so, like, it was just like a lot to process. Like, okay, like each time it changed, we had to be like, okay, now we're going to be dealing with these circumstances or like whatever it was. And yeah, from the start, they had said Indiana, and I kept being like, please, can we go to like the East Coast? Because I'm from Philly. So I was like, if I have any input, like, let's go that way. But I have been very pleasantly surprised since moving here. I've really enjoyed it a lot so far. So I think, yeah, they know they've been around a lot longer than I have, and they knew that it would be a great place to train and all that. They're both from Indiana, so yeah, we ended up here, and I feel like it's working out well so far.
I love just sort of that level of trust that you have with them. That was it really like anywhere and I will follow. Like it could have been middle of nowhere in Idaho where there's, a population of like, I don't know, 200 people in a small town and you would have been game for it.
Honestly, yeah. I'm very stubborn, so I kind of like kicked my feet up for a second and I was like, I'm not moving to Indiana. Like I had never been to Indiana, so I didn't know what to expect. Like I just thought it was going to be kind of like middle of nowhere, whatever. Um, and I kept telling them, like, if you go there, like, it's gonna be hard for me to say I'm coming. And then they're like, we're going there. And I was like, well, I think you knew that I was coming with you regardless. So I guess I'm coming to Indiana. So yeah, I feel like wherever they would, I would have gone. Because it just felt like that was the right move for me. And I can live anywhere and I can make anything work. I kept telling myself, like, it doesn't, we don't have to be there super long term. Like, you never know. But like in this very crucial time, like I need to be with these coaches and I need to be in Indiana with them.
Do you think that when you're coming out of Monmouth and they were scouting for talent, like obviously you weren't one of those people who was getting calls from all of the different top sponsors to join this team and join that team and like recruit people. And we've kind of talked about it maybe in one of these mixed zone interviews. I remember you once walking me through sort of your progression and just like how much improvement you've seen year over year. At what point do you think like, or what do you think that the Begleys saw when you were coming out of Monmouth that they saw as, oh, we can work with that athlete and there's still a lot of potential? What do you think it was?
So Andrew actually still talks about this story to this day. The moment he realized he wanted to be my coach was because when I was at Monmouth, I mean, I've dealt with like pretty chronic Achilles issues. And so when I was at Monmouth, my 5th year was when my Achilles like really flared up. And it was like actually unbearable pain. Like I had like bursitis, tendonitis, like all this stuff going on. I would cry practically every single day to no one's surprise now. But it was just like, it was brutal. Like how painful it was, and we've gotten it under control to this point, but it's I still like deal with it here and there. But in college, yeah, it was really really bad. And basically like I was my trainers just like had me living in a boot. Like I was always in a boot, so it wasn't going to stop me from running, but we thought like the boot might help like with like if I wore it. And so I showed up to my race at BU and I was wearing my boot and I'm just, trekking around. And then I took my boot off. I raced. That was like a big breakthrough day for me. I ran 2:02. It was like the happiest moment ever. I knew I qualified for indoor NCAAs and the Begleys were there. And I think they actually had a couple athletes in that race. And I think I came in second. So I think Laura Raisler won and then I came in second. So I beat some of the pros. And he said like he was just like mind blown. He was like, that girl just like walked out here in a boot, like throws it off, races, throws it back on. And so like he just says like he felt like that was like really cool and he knew like how tough I was. And obviously like I'm not promoting racing while you're injured, but like it was something that like we were like dealing with and we thought that would help. And yeah, I mean, I was in excruciating pain. And so he just felt like I was someone that he really like connected with and thought like that I would be someone he'd want to coach. So
That was 2019, and then all happens very fast, even during the pandemic while people are,
Hmm.
given basically this extra opportunity of a year to develop and train hard before the trials got moved. Then all of a sudden, out of the pandemic, you emerge as, one of the top US 800-meter runners. And it's kind of bananas because, like, at that point, like, the US is so deep in the 800 where just running too flat doesn't guarantee you make it to a final. At what point does all of a sudden your work with the Begley start to look like a roadmap to making teams? Because you stress on this, how pivotal this year is, and this is
Hmm.
the Olympic year, but now there have been multiple opportunities where you've been in contention to make teams.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't really know. I think the pandemic obviously was just such a hard time for everyone. Like we were just training mindless, like for like no good reason. We didn't know what we were training for. We didn't know when the next time we were gonna like toe the line was. And so I feel like I had a lot of like low points during the pandemic where I was like, what am I even doing? Like, I had just moved to a new city. I didn't know that many people. Like, I knew my teammates pretty much and my coaches, and that was it. And so, yeah, we were just like putting in all this hard work and like had nothing to show for it. Like, I was like, am I even getting better? Am I improving? Like, why am I still doing this? Like, and it was hard for me because I just moved so far away from home. Like, I'm from Philly and I went to school in New Jersey. So I was never like that far from home. And I didn't realize like how much that would impact me until I moved to Atlanta and then was stuck there. I couldn't like visit home during the pandemic. So then I like wanted to be closer to my family. And I just like, yeah, I feel like it was just every other day I was waking up being like, should I just stop? Like, I don't know. And then that first season after the pandemic, um, or after at least it had calmed down, I just was like praying that like all that hard work was finally going to pay off because otherwise I was like, I just like wasted however many years of my life. Like, and then yeah, I like ran a race. My first race was in Texas that year, and we had like this atrocious, I don't know, like the timing was just really got really off for the meet. And so we had stood there for like 45 minutes and I ran 2:02. And I was like, okay,
Yeah,
this
we
is literally like,
commentated that race. It was in February. It was
okay,
like the first
yeah,
meet that like anyone had signed up for in a
yes.
while.
And so I was like, okay, I just ran 2:02 with like cold muscles. Like it was Texas, so they weren't actually cold, but I was not warmed up anymore. So I like knew in that moment I was like so determined to like prove that I was fitter than that, and like that race was not like a good representation of like where all that work was the past couple years. And then the next week we had like a little race in Marietta, like that the track club put on, and I just like led from the front and ran for my life and ended up running too flat that day. So I had PR'd by like full 2 full seconds, and then I was like, okay, here we go, we're on track. I knew that, like, I knew it was in there. And then yeah, that whole season was just like a slow progression down. And really going into that year, I was just like hoping to make the Olympic trials because the qualifying time was 2:02.5 and my PR was 2:02.7. And I was like, I think I can do that. And Andrew kept saying, like, you're going to break two this year. And I was like, haha, okay. Like, I'm very realistic. And I was just like, okay, coach, whatever you say. Um, and then, yeah, I like ran too flat and I was like, okay, I made it to the trials. And then I was just like hoping to like see what I could do there. And then making it to the final, like in my first trials, was really special. And I think I PR'd in the trials
Yeah,
final. So
159.02, sixth place.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I knew that I had left it all out there. There was nothing more I could have done. Obviously, when you get that close, it's like, oh, like I was so, well, pretty close. It wasn't that close, but like you had to get top three. I came in six. Like, so you always want more, but I was very happy, like with obviously going into that season, just wanting to even be there and then being a finalist was really cool.
When do you things change though from like happy to be here to like no 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 now I want to be on the team?
I would say the following year was when that happened. So obviously the famous race where I face planted. um, that day, yeah. So I feel like every race has a story. Like the week before, I had ran at Drake Relays in Des Moines, and it was just like a legitimate tornado the day of our race. and I ran 2:03. And I was coming back from injury. I didn't race indoors that year. And I was like, okay, I just ran 2:03 in a tornado. And I told my coach, I was like, I know you're not going to believe this, but I think that was like 1:57 effort. And he was like, okay, Allie. So now he's like not believing me, but he knew it was like in there, but he didn't think it would happen like that next week. Obviously, I didn't run 1:57, but like then I was so determined, like on paper, I just ran 2:03, but that was like the hardest I've ever tried in my life. Like, I want people to know what that time actually was. And so that's why I just like ran for my life in that race to try to run a good time. And then, yeah, my legs gave out, and but I ran 1:58, so I was happy. And then that whole season, like, I think that was the starting point for me. And then even my 15th time started coming down. So I was like, okay, like, I feel like the top girls like can do multiple things, and up to that point I only felt like I could do the 800. So I was like, okay, like I'm getting in my groove. And then yeah, I was able to place fourth at the US champs that year. And I mean, with the amount, like the depth and the quality of like the women in this event in the US is like insane. So to come in fourth, um again, it was like a little bittersweet, but it was pretty cool and pretty special. And I was really proud of it. So I would say like that day I realized like, okay, I'm like up there. I
Yeah.
have a chance.
So you one of the pin posts on your Instagram is 2022, you're going to be a hard one to top. Now,
Mhm.
this year opens up with, a US title. How are we feeling about the start to 2024?
Pretty good. Yeah, I would say 23 was like not, yeah, it was like just not the year I wanted, especially coming off of like such a high from 2022. I had like all sorts of expectations and like things that I thought were going to happen last year that like I was just like, that just like I wasn't even close. And so it was super disappointing. In the grand scheme of things, it really wasn't that awful of a year. It's just like compared to what I wanted, I was like pretty disappointed, and it just felt like a struggle. So to like now start this year with something like a national championship, yeah, it feels really good. And I think that like one thing that like after my race this past weekend, obviously I got very emotional. And I think part of the reason, or like a lot of the reason, was because up until this point, like I had felt like there was just this like barrier every time the race really mattered. So if it's just like some Joe Schmo meet in like Arkansas, like I'm gonna like run a world lead and face whatever. And then like when it really matters is when I was always feeling like I raced differently. I didn't like race to my potential. Like, and I like couldn't figure out why, but I like knew that deep down. And so it really stressed me out every time I showed up to a championship, because I was like I just historically speaking had like never performed like how I like felt like I could have. And that started like back in college, like at the NCAA level. Like when I started improving and stuff, I just always felt like I was falling short when it mattered most. And so actually this weekend I had told Bianca, who like I don't even know how to explain her to people, but she started as my friend. Now she's our assistant coach, and like she does a lot of all of my mental like work, and she's so good at stuff like that. And I had told her like going into the weekend, I was like, can I just be like totally honest with you? And she's like, yeah. And I took, and I'm not allowed to say negative things, but if I ask, then I'm allowed to say it. So I basically told her, like, I already feel like I know what's going to happen. Like, top two make the world team, and I'm going to come in third. Like, that's always what happens. Like, whatever that thing is that I want, I come in one after it. And like, and so she was like, basically like the whole weekend she was just like working with me on like believing like if you believe that, then that's what's going to happen. So like believe otherwise, like believe you're going to win, believe you can win. And so we just like left room for the possibility, even though I'm very stubborn. And I was like, I know it's going to happen, it happens every time. And so I feel like that's why I got so emotional after that race, because this was the first time where I performed like to the like my standards when it mattered. And that just like like that's such like a big relief off my shoulders now, like especially going into like the Olympic year, because it always felt a little phony for me to be like, I'm gonna make this team or I'm gonna do this because it hadn't happened yet. And now it has. And now I know that I can do it when it matters most. Yeah.
So I want to dive a little deeper into that because obviously the fans and the spectators see happy, bubbly Allie before and after the races. When do you turn, like when you flip that switch to be in competitor mode in these races against, the people this weekend, against a Thing Mo or Ajay Wilson, like what is competitor Allie saying and thinking in her head during these races?
So that's a good question because I feel like I am actually a different person the second the gun goes off. Like, it's not even like I'm like some scary person, but it's like I really can't. I mean, we all have that ability, but like it's just like a flip of a switch, and all of a sudden I'm like, it's just in like action mode, like whatever I have to do to like do the best that I can. And like my thing with myself is it's like impossible for me not to try my hardest. Like I can know I'm gonna come in like dead last or whatever, or like whatever it is, like if the weather's awful and like and no one feels like competing, like I don't know why I'm like this, but I always try my hardest. Like I just never give up. And that's one thing that I like try to remind myself, like, because once I'm racing, like I know I'm going to like do everything in my power to like put myself in a good position to do well and get the most out of that day. And sometimes like the races themselves just like prevent that from happening. Like things happen and it happens to all of us. Like, and then you just don't end up having the day you want sometimes. But I know like in my heart, at least I'm always giving it my all. And that's really like what's most important to me. But yeah, I don't know how that switch happens. I think I've always been a very competitive person. Sports have been like literally my life since I was like a little tiny, like 4 year old. So I used to play soccer, and I feel like that I still like consider myself just like an athlete. Like I never really felt like a runner. I just feel like I'm an athlete, and like I like to compete and I like to like give it my all and get the most out of myself. And I think that's what I do once that gun goes off.
So this time, if we unpack this past weekend's final, the 800 indoors is a very physical event. And I looked at your results from this season, and each time out that it's been a final, it's been a season's best, season's best, season's best. And that includes this past weekend in Albuquerque. But in that first lap, didn't you almost get tripped up?
Yes, there was a little mishap. Um, Yeah, I feel like someone may have gone over a little too soon. I don't think there was like much of a stride length at all, if any. And so, but somebody else asked me about this, and it's like it happens. Like racing is racing. Everyone's out there just trying to like make the best decision they can. I don't think she did it on purpose, but like, yeah, actually watching it back, I was like, yeah, that almost caused like a big, a big issue. Like if I had gone down, I think it would have taken out the rest of the race. So that wouldn't have been good. But
Does that
yeah,
break your focus at all? Like, while you have to be engaged and competitor mode for this 2 minutes, does that, is that
for
a
sure.
second of panic or anything?
So for sure, yeah. It I actually didn't panic, but I kind of like I actually verbally said out loud, like, hey, like I like feel like I'm always talking in races. I always say things, but um yeah, I definitely lost focus for a second, and I was just like, but it almost is like maybe like sometimes when stuff like that happens, it's almost like for the best. Like I'm not happy that happened, but it's like it kind of distracted me from like what I was trying to do, and then I was just like, okay, re-engage, let's go. And then it just like made it go by like really fast. And I just tried to, yeah, obviously, yeah, I don't think she had any malicious intent, but I just tried to like yeah, you obviously want to try to stay out of trouble the best you can, but indoors, like running that fast, it just can get really choppy. And I know, like going into Glasgow, and like, well, like I know that these races are about to be pretty vicious. So it's probably good that we got a little practice in for some contact and stuff. But yeah, I feel like I race very like what's the word? I don't know. Like I'm almost like too. I feel like I race too nice. Maybe other people would disagree, but I'm like I'm not like putting my elbows out. I'm not like cut. I'm not trying to cut anyone off. I'm sure I have, but like I feel like I just like try to like take up as little space as possible, whereas other people are probably purposely doing the opposite because that would make sense. But yeah, I just try to be considerate and like not like if someone's
You're
coming,
too
I'm like, okay.
nice.
I need to learn a little more. Like maybe I need to bring out my inner soccer girl and yeah, be willing to throw a bow here and there.
So then going into the final lap, at that point, I guess like Addie Wiley was trying to take this thing wire to wire. Does the thought creep into your head of what you were telling Bianca before of like, oh, I know how this goes. Like it's gonna be second place, it's gonna be third place, and you're kicking for your life at that point. You rewrite the script and you change the outcome and you win the damn thing. What are you thinking about in that final lap?
Yeah, so I feel like half the time I'm disappointed in my races, it's because I did something really stupid early on. And so at that point, I was like, okay, Allie, we obviously got a little tripped up. That's fine. I had forgotten about that. And I was like, you're in the perfect position. Like you are doing the thing you want to do. Um, and I think if I hadn't told Bianca out loud that like I that's what like I kind of was thinking was going to happen. I don't know. Like I feel like maybe I would have tensed up or somebody would have gotten me there at the end. But because we had gone over like I can do this. I can beat these girls. I can like all these things and like she'd tell me I don't care if you believe it, you're saying it. And so I would just say it and I'd be like, "Okay, I'll say it." And I'd be like saying it against my will. And so coming around that last lap, I was like repeating those things to myself and I was like, "I can do this. Like I can win this race." And I obviously had no idea what was going on behind me. And I, quite frankly, didn't know everyone was as close as they were. Afterwards, people were talking about how it was like a blanket finish. And I was like, really? Like, I had no idea. But I was just trying to like focus on like getting everything I could out of that last lap and making it hard to catch me if anyone was right there. And yeah, coming around the last turn, I was like, I have something left. Let's just like leave it all out here and see what happens. And honestly, when I crossed the finish line, I was very confused. Like, I feel like it's funny to me to see like my Milrose race pictures. I'm like, yay, like I won. And these ones, I'm like making this like weird face because I like couldn't even believe it myself because I did think I knew what was going to happen that race. And I did like rewrite that narrative. So it was pretty cool.
So afterwards, what is it like, I guess, when you get back together with Bianca and your coaches, to celebrate?
Oh my gosh, it was like the best moment ever. They were so happy. My coach cried. I feel like he probably only cried because I cried because I feel like I have a very contagious cry. And I know he knows like how badly I've needed a race like this, like literally my whole career, and it's never happened. And so yeah, and then Bianca same thing, like she was like I can't even look at you without crying like and I think it was just like really reassuring for all of us. Like it was reassuring to like me to know that like I had made the right choice and that I like can do these things that have felt like it was like impossible up to this point. It was reassuring to my coach to know like we're on track, we're doing the right things. Like he prepared me to the best of his ability to pull that one off. And like it was reassuring to Bianca because she said like you like she's like the most like I can't even explain her, but she believes in me more than probably anyone in the world, maybe my coach and my parents. Okay. But she was like, you were like before that race, you were starting to make me doubt my like myself and how I was approaching it with you because like of how you like things you were saying and stuff like that. Like that's how badly I was doubting myself. And so then it was like the moment that I won for her was like, oh my God, like I was able to get through to her. Like we were able to make a difference. And yeah, I don't think, I mean, I could not have done it without either one of them. So yeah, they're very special to me. And that moment was really special.
I saw Bianca's post and, then I looked into her profile and some of the work that she does through her comeback academy, which is designed for quote like the mental side of injuries, was really fascinating. In her caption, I guess from the post with you, she did note burn ceremonies and dance parties. What's that all about?
Okay, so going into this week, she like wanted to like come up with activities we could do that would kind of like take my mind off of things. And like sometimes I feel like we as runners, like when we're at a big race, it's like I have to focus on what I'm doing and I can't stop thinking about it the entire time I'm there. And it's just like it's too much. Like we're real people. We need like things to take our mind off of it. And so she had come up with like a couple ideas and my coach kept shutting them down. And then she told me like basically she kept bringing up like we're gonna have a burn ceremony, and I was like, what does that even mean? But okay, like I trust her with my life, so I was like, sure, whatever we're gonna burn, I'll be there. And so she had me write down like a bunch of things that I didn't want to bring with me into my races. So like things like self-doubt and expectations and things like that. And then we burnt them. So I wrote, well, actually first we wrote them out and then she had me write what the opposite of it was. So I had this list of things like I do want to bring with me to the race, like courage and stuff like that. And so then we ripped up all of the ones we didn't want to bring with us. And then we went and got a lighter because neither of us had one. And then we were just in our hotel room and we burnt all of them and watched them like slowly die. And it was like really powerful. I feel like it like things like that to me like used to seem so phony. Like I was like, okay, like that's not going to work. But it really felt like I was like getting rid of those things and taking them off of my shoulders. And so it was fun. And there's actually a really funny video. Maybe you're gonna have to get this from Bianca, but of one of the pieces of paper as we're burning it got stuck to my finger. So I'm like in full panic mode, like like screaming. And then, yeah, it didn't end up burning my fingers off, but I was like, that was almost bad. Like my coach is always saying, like, don't do anything. She can get hurt. And we thought this was like a pretty safe bet. And I almost like burnt my hand off.
I would have been
But
so I'd have been so worried about lighting the hotel room on fire.
well, yeah, we had like the little thing where you can like fill with ice. So we like put water in there and then we were just like putting them in.
The cleaning
We
staff must be
probably,
so confused as to like
yeah.
what was happening in here before.
Yeah, I don't know if we knew the world was going to find out about that one, but they did, so it's fine. And then our dance parties. So Bianca is actually a cycle bar instructor, and she is like the most motivational, inspirational person you could ever ride with. Like her classes I'm regularly like on the verge of tears. I always tell her, like, the second I leave, I want to run through a brick wall. Like, I might not even be in season. I'm like, put me on the track. Like, the second I get out of her classes, because she's just so good with her words. And I feel like she's been through much and has learned so much. And both of her parents actually were, her dad was an Olympic cyclist, her mom was the US champ in cycling, actually. And so I feel like she was just like raised to like be a champion and have the champion's mindset. And so she, because she's a cycle bar instructor, she has just like the best playlist. Like that girl has such good music if you ever need a good playlist. And so whenever we're at these meets together, she's always my like, she does everything, but she's also my DJ, and she'll just like put on like the best music. We'll have like the best vibes going on in the room before we leave for my races and stuff. And yeah, we'll just like jump around and dance around for a little bit. Maybe not like right before I leave for my race because usually I'm too nervous, but like the night before or the morning of or something, we'll just like get the good vibes going. And yeah, it like makes me feel like more like excited and like to like take on whatever I have to do that day. And it's just she's really good at just like lifting the mood and making it like making me like get out of my own head.
So who was the risk taker? This has been just a whole season of betting on yourself, taking risks to switch up from the high bun to the low ponytail. When we asked for questions on Instagram, I think half of them were about that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. So honestly, I got my hair done recently and I like had my hairdresser make it darker. I asked for that and then I immediately regretted it. So I was like, why did I do that? And I got a haircut. So I have just felt like my bun hasn't really been my bun. Like it's been like more floppy. I feel like it's like too healthy right now. So it's like not staying put as well. Like I like it a very specific way, and it hasn't been doing it for me. So I just like wanted to go into that race feeling like really like I was ready, and my bun was just not cutting it these days. So I was like, that morning, I think I was just wearing it in a low ponytail, and I was like, I kind of like the low pony. Like maybe I'll just race like that. And Bianca was with me. She was shook. She was like, really? And but then like the more I thought about it, I'm a lot of my best races have been when I haven't worn my bun. So I'm starting to wonder if it's like not very aerodynamic. Which I normally only end up wearing it like that because it's so hot. So it's like indoors, it's not that hot. So I didn't mind like my hair being on my neck. But the second we get to outdoor, like it's gonna be back up. I'm gonna be too hot. I don't know what I'm gonna do in Scotland. I haven't decided yet, but the pony might be here to stay, but I hope that's not gonna make everyone mad.
You've got the fans on their toes for this one.
Yeah.
Another part of this whole weekend, I guess, that has made like your story so impactful to people is that because you'd left Atlanta Track Club and moved to Indianapolis, like you're no longer sponsored, and so you've been doing this whole entire indoor season unsponsored. I guess the people are wondering, one, have the calls started coming, and then two, have you had to take up extra work outside of running to kind of support your athletic endeavors?
Yes. So I'll answer those questions backwards
Okay.
because I'll start with the what I'm doing now and hopefully what's to come. Um, but yeah, so when I moved here, I kind of thought like, all right, I don't know. I'm not like the number one, like I don't even know, recruit, whatever I would be considered in the country. But I do think like I thought I had ran like respectable enough to like get something. I didn't know if it was going to like amount to what I was making in Atlanta or whatever, but it just like didn't even, it just became like not about that for me. I was like, regardless, I'll make it work. Ray, my agent, he has been working very hard, and he knows obviously a lot more than I do about all of this. So I don't know if he knew like I don't know, like maybe it just made more sense to wait. He knew that I was like, my coaches kept telling him like she's pretty fit, like I don't know. So maybe he knew like it would be in my best interest to wait until after USA's to figure that out. I think he believed he could have gotten me something regardless, but maybe now like it'll make my value go up a little. But yeah, in the meantime, so I kind of like I had some money saved, so I was like, I'll be fine. Like in the fall and stuff, I was just trying to like be a little more careful about my spending, whatever it was. And then it just, yeah, got to a point where I was like, okay, like apparently when you're spending money and not putting more money back in your bank account, like it starts to really go down. So I was like, I didn't want to get to a point where I was like stressed and like I literally have $0 and how am I going to get to this meet or like whatever it was. I was just like, okay, let me like be proactive here. There's been points in my career already. Like my first contract wasn't really, it was like a good contract, but it wasn't like the amount that like I felt like I needed for the way that I spend money because I can be a little reckless, but that's another issue. So I like had picked up a nannying job in Atlanta at one point, my first 2 years there, and then yeah, so I knew like I can always fall back on that. I love like kids, and it always feels like great to like have a family, kind of a home away from home kind of thing. While I'm out here, just like in the middle of Indiana with very few people that I know. So yeah, I had gotten back on care.com and I found I like for a while was on there and there's just like nothing that I felt like worked with my schedule. People need like 40 hours a week and whatever. It's like, no, like I can't work full time and do everything I need to do for this. So I didn't want to be like half in. So then, yeah, this family reached out to me and said, like, you'd be perfect for us. Like, they're a very athletic family. They have 5 kids. I mostly work with just like the 2 little ones, and they have been like the greatest blessing since I've been here. The mom is both the parents are like so understanding of what I'm trying to do and very flexible. So that's kind of what like I need. Like I need someone who's like willing to work with me because I'm constantly leaving to race and travel and all this and my training. And sometimes we're like switching what days I'm working out and then I have to tell them last minute. And so it's just like really great to have somebody who like really understands that and cares about what I'm doing otherwise. And yeah, so I wasn't like I didn't really hesitate in doing that. I guess a part of my like, ego or whatever was like, oh, like am I like moving back because like I used to do that and now I'm contractless, I have to do that again. And I'm like, no, like I care about this dream and it's just what I had to have to do in the meantime. And I'm really grateful that I was able to find them. It's helped a lot. And so hopefully, I mean, I honestly, even if I get a contract, I'll probably still want to help them a little bit because they were there for me when I needed them and I'm very loyal. So, but yeah, Ray has already reached out saying there's some things on the table now. So I don't know like any of the details yet. He actually had told my coaches. So I'm just over here like waiting like a little bit to see what he says. And I have no idea like who would be interested or what kind of contracts they might be coming up with. But for a second there, like it did feel like I was a little bit wondering like, is this ever going to happen? Am I going to get through this whole year like having to like figure this out? Because I know a lot of people do it and I know that I could have done it if I had to. But it's just like not really what I thought was going to happen for the year. But I took a chance and I went out on a limb and here we are. I think that it's all like falling into place the way that I was hoping and actually even a little better.
Did you get the family to tune in to watch your race? Like that's one
Yes.
of the cool parts, I guess, when you connect with just a a family. Like I think about some of these races where they put up the athletes with like a host family for the weekend, and then all of a sudden, like that host family becomes like your number one fan on site. So did this family, all of a sudden start celebrating? Like, did they tune in for that race?
Yes. So I literally just started working with them like pretty much at the new year because I kind of was under the assumption like, oh, maybe I'll have a contract by the new year. So I just have to get to there. And then all of a sudden I was like, all right, hasn't happened yet. Let's like make moves, do something about it. So I only started working with them probably like for first week of January. So pretty much the entire indoor season. But they have very quickly become like my number one fans. Like they are just like constantly sending me videos of them all like going nuts after my races. And actually, like funny enough, the dad's brother is a track coach in the area. So
Okay.
I think he helped. Like a lot of times, like the people I worked for, like definitely like get it, but like maybe not totally. And I feel like he told them immediately, like, that girl's pretty good, whatever. So I think that that might have helped, and they really have been like all in on my career, even just knowing them for like a month and a half.
So before we get to some listener questions, I'm curious. You've gotten the chance to wear the Team USA kit before when you ran at NACAC in 2022. Did it feel a little bit differently this time around going through team processing and all of the stuff you have to do after the race?
It did, yes. When I made the NACAC team in 22, I was obviously over the moon. Like it was at that point, I was like, you know what? Just getting to put on this uniform means like so much because it's so freaking hard to do. And I feel like there's probably so many amazing, amazing athletes who have gone through their entire career and never gotten to put that uniform on. So I definitely didn't take it for granted. But yeah, that time it was kind of like, oh, like Allie, you got fourth, so you have to go do processing, and they were kind of like,
That's
oh, like
right.
you don't even need to try the uniform on, like we'll just send it to you. And I was like, okay. I like didn't have my passport. I had no idea what I was doing. Um, but then like, yeah, and then even like my race at the Bahamas, like it just was like, it was like probably one of the less competitive races I've run. And I was like, I'm wearing this uniform, like I'm trying to be like this like big cool race, and it just felt like it was like really cool, but at the same time, something just felt like it was missing. And so this time it was like, it just felt like it was really, really earned. And like, yeah, it was a great feeling. And I mean, I just wanted to make the team. Like I was like, I just want to make a world team. I want to make it an Olympic team, something like I want to wear that uniform because I like made like did what I needed to do on that day. And then so to like be like the person who won that race was made it like all like even better.
All right, let's get into some of these questions that were submitted on Instagram. Danny Rapp asks, "What is the best state for track and field, and why is it New Jersey?"
New Jersey's a good one. I used to make fun of it growing up because I was from Pennsylvania, and that's what you do. You call New Jersey the armpit of the United States. But then I lived there and I was like, I actually think I want to live here one day. So maybe I'll stop making fun of it. But
The 4x8, like with New Jersey pros, would be really, really good. It would
oh,
be
yeah.
Ajay, a thing, you, and then do we put Josette, I guess, on there as
Well,
well?
Olivia.
Oh, then yeah, that's right.
But then, like, sometimes Olivia and I, when I was in Atlanta, we used to debate because she'd be like, you aren't from New Jersey. Like everyone always says you'd
Oh,
be in
this
that
just
race.
finding a way to kick you off the team.
Yeah. I'm like, I my mom is from New Jersey, so I do have Jersey roots. And now that I had gone to school there, I was like, I feel like Jersey can claim me a little bit if they want.
Yeah.
But I am a Philly girl through and through.
Let's see what else we got here. Shannon 601 submitted a couple questions. One of them was, what do you eat on race day?
Oh, okay. Well, I actually am going live with my nutritionist tomorrow. I'm
Okay.
sure we'll get into that a little more. But normally, I did make a post yesterday because I've gotten into pancakes for my race day breakfast, which is really random. And my pancakes this weekend actually had flowers on it, and I ate them. Which I think they were edible, but if not, I'm like, maybe that's my new thing. um, so I do like, yeah, it kind of depends on like what time of day I'm racing. But if I'm racing later, I'll eat like a full big like omelet, potatoes, something like that for breakfast. So I'm really like full throughout the day. And then if it's an earlier race, I'll eat like pancakes. And then I usually will eat like a couple hours before my race, just like almond butter on bread with a banana, and then just lots of electrolytes. And that's pretty much it. I do eat a goo 20 minutes before my race. I just started doing
Oh,
that a
okay.
couple years ago. And I kind of go in phases with it because sometimes like when you're standing there so nervous, I'll tell my nutritionist, like, I just like really don't want to like put that whole pouch of goo in my mouth. Like I already am like shaking and like you just don't want to eat anything. But I think like those like quick calories, carbs. I don't even know what really it's for, but I think is really good for like um for race day. So
Yeah. It's funny because I didn't really think of it much because you were on the 800. I think goos,
mhm.
gels, I think marathoners.
I have been told I'm a closeted marathoner. My coach is like, "Are you a distance runner?" I'm like so fixated on splits and stuff. I don't know.
AJ Squig asks, what's your Wawa order?
My what?
Your Wawa
Oh,
order.
my Wawa order. Okay. I usually get an Italian hoagie, not sub. And I mean, I get like all the toppings, lettuce, tomato, onion, pickles, sweet peppers. That's normally what I get. I love Wawa coffee, obviously. Iced or like I love the iced like machines with like their little pebble ice. It's so good. I feel like there's so much sugar in it, but I just pretend like it doesn't have all that.
Karen Ramming asks, how much did you love being on Road to Tracktown? There was I guess, how many parts was it? Did it end up being 3 or 4?
I think four.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was really
Yeah. Oh my
cool.
gosh. I loved it. Yeah. I like still to this day, I'm like, why did they pick me? Like, I'm honored, but I don't get how they decided on me. But I had so much fun doing it. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily like the best in front of the camera. I feel like I get really awkward. So sometimes I was just like, my friends were just sending me like the funniest clips of like something weird or dumb that I said. But
You mic'd up
uh,
during workouts is fantastic.
honestly, like I talk so much during our workouts. I don't know if my teammates love it or hate it, but I just like every single rep, I'm coming up with some equation for how much we have left or how much we've already done. I've been told like, stop telling me that. And I've also been told like, oh, that really helped. Or like I talk mid rep. I talk a lot.
Well, you mentioned that beforehand about how you've talked during races before. What's the, is it, what are you usually saying during some of these races? Like, I'm trying to picture like US Championships semifinal. Like, are you after one lap being like, we're doing great? Or like, what are you saying in these races?
Honestly, if enough of my friends were in the race, I probably would say something like that. Um, yeah, because like going into like the last lap of a rep or something, I'll be like, last lap, let's go. We could do it, like whatever. It's easier to do when we're at practice than in a race, obviously. Normally, when I'm saying something in a race, it's because something's kind of like going on. Like I'll be like, hey, like, okay, I'm right here. Like,
Or move?
yeah, yeah. I feel like I've literally told people like, I'm stuck. Can you let me out? Like I've been so boxed in. It's like I shouldn't be able to say that. That's how badly you know I'm stuck. And
Oh,
everyone's probably like, that's like called racing. Like,
yeah.
what are you
It's like,
talking
oh, we got her where we want her.
about? Yeah.
All right, final questions for me. I've been workshopping these for several episodes, and now I think I finally got the questions I'm going to ask every guest. All right,
Okay.
so for you, who's the most intimidating competitor or the most nervous you've ever been before a race?
Ooh. So I think the most nervous I've ever been was this weekend.
Really?
Um, yeah, like I was so nervous, but I have learned like over the years, like if I'm not nervous, it's a problem. But I was so nervous that I was like, I think this is a problem. And then afterwards, I was like, oh, maybe I need to do that every time. The most intimidating competitor. I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I feel like the obvious answer is like a thing because I feel like she just like prances around and is just like 30 meters ahead of
She's
everybody.
running in lane
Um,
two for some reason.
yeah. But I feel like everyone is just like so sweet that it's not even like it's like an intimidating thing. It's just like she's just really freaking good. And that's just that. But
Yeah.
she's like so nice and so humble and all this stuff. And I think that's how everyone is like across the board. In our event, but in every event, everyone's so nice in this sport. But yeah, obviously racing against her is kind of like, all right, let's see what we can do here.
What's the race or performance that really made you believe in yourself as an athlete? I think you maybe talked about this already.
Yeah. Which one did I even say? Oh, 2022 finals.
Yeah.
I
Um,
think it probably is that. Yeah.
what's your favorite race ever? Is it this weekend? Or
Ooh,
the face plant?
honestly, it's probably a tie between this weekend and Faceplant because Faceplant was just like the most me thing of all time. And I just thought it was so funny. And everyone thought it was so funny, and everyone makes fun of me still for it. But I feel like that was such a big breakthrough for me. And like, it would have been my least favorite race of all time if I had fallen like 2 feet earlier. But since I fell the way I did and I crossed the line, then I did enjoy it. Yeah.
When I've gone back and like watched that video, especially like that weekend after it was posted, because it just like loops and like it's just got that TikTok or reel effect where it's just over and over again. I'm just so stunned that like you got back up and there wasn't just like, I don't know, track on your face basically, because how hard that fall was. You were going so
I,
fast.
I hit the ground really hard. Like my knee was really messed up. After that, it was like all cut up, bruised. Like I thought I could like hardly walk the next day, but then we did a workout and it was fine. So I was like, all right, nothing's broken. It just hurts.
All right, final two questions. Do you have a Roman
Okay.
Empire about a race or athlete you think about a lot but don't know why?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Who do I think about a lot? I feel like even if there is anyone, I wouldn't want to say who.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh, I think about this Ajay Wilson race from way back in the
Yeah.
day or whatever it was.
I've got a few Roman empires, but I might have to keep them to myself. But I mean, this is like kind of an obvious answer, and you're gonna be like, cool, Allie, great answer. But the Olympics are my Roman Empire because it's like I really, really want to go. I just want to go. I want to be an Olympian. I really want to get the rings tattooed on my body somewhere. I don't have any tattoos to this day. I don't want any tattoos except for that one. And because I feel like that's just like so meaningful. I could never get sick of it. And that's always what I'm worried about with a tattoo. So I mean, I'm obviously excited for it more than just the tattoo, but I feel like that's something that I'm like, I just really want that to happen.
You know where you would
So
get it? Or is that like too, or you don't want to say because it'd be a little superstitious?
yeah.
Are you superstitious about it?
I actually haven't put in that much thought for where I would get it.
Okay.
Maybe like rib cage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be somewhere like kind of discreet, but like when you see it, like it's cool.
I feel the same. I think Ellie Purrier St. Pierre has it, I think, right
Right on
above,
her
like on
like
the top part of her leg. And I'm like, oh, that's a
yeah.
good spot because you can
Yeah.
see it when they're racing. Yeah.
Yeah, hers is so cool. And like even I know a lot of the girls like Heather and Corey, I think both have like the Olympic rings necklace and just like they just like get to wear that so proudly, like for the rest of their life. I'm like, I want that too.
Yeah, they don't make it for whatever the Monmouth Conference Championship was. They don't get to wear
Exactly.
that necklace around.
Or if they did, no one would probably care.
All right, final question, and let's leave the people with some inspiration. What's the best advice a coach has given you, and who was it?
Oh boy. Hmm.
Bianca's given some great advice. I'm sure Andrew's
That is
got a
like her
ton
bread
too.
and butter. Andrew has had to put up with my shenanigans for a long time, and he's gotten me to this point. I feel like they've both given me so much good advice. Um, I think, all right, I'm going with Bianca, and I think I've talked about this in like an interview recently, but my favorite advice she's ever given me is just like to leave room for the possibility that something could happen. Because a lot of times, like we're going up into these races and there's just like it's just like so much and you're like I like everyone's so fast and like how am I going to possibly ever do the thing I'm trying to do, and like she always just like reminds me like just leave room for the possibility that it could happen, like it may not happen but it may happen, so like just like let there be like that little glimmer of belief in like your depths of your soul and like it could happen, and I feel like this weekend was a really good example of that.
I love that. Well, Allie, we wish you the best of luck in training. And then, do you have any plans, I guess, for when you go out to Glasgow? Like, are you gonna go sightseeing after the meet, or like, what's the? I know it's business first, but then after that, like, are you gonna take a little break and enjoy things?
So I'm actually, yeah, after the race, I'm flying straight back to Philly. So I'll spend time with my family. I have a couple of nieces and a nephew, and my nephew's like, I don't know, 5 months old now. And I feel like he's just like gotten so big since the last time I was there. So I'm just excited to spend time with them. Every time I go somewhere like new, my dad always emails me like things that I should do while I'm there. So I already got his email. I actually haven't even seen what's in it yet, but he says things to do in Glasgow. And like I've gone on like really cool like tours because of him that like he looks up when I raced in Padova a couple 2 years ago, and he was like, Allie, you're gonna be 30 minutes from Venice. And I would have never known that if he didn't tell me. So then I like rallied the troops, like we made a bunch of friends with like some of the other girls who were racing there. We all went to Venice together, and I was like, I was that close to Venice, and I almost didn't go because I wouldn't have known. So yeah, I have to see what he's put on my itinerary, but obviously, first and foremost, I gotta try to run fast and see how far I can make it through in those races. But yeah, I have a bunch of people coming out to support me, so I think we'll have a good time.
Awesome. Well, Allie, thanks for doing this, and we're rooting for you.
Of course. Thank you. Bye.